Hi, everyone. Don Famularo here, and this continues with the Mapex All Access Monday adventures that I get a chance to have some wonderful, wonderful conversations with different drummers from all around the world. And it never ceases to amaze me that when I meet a new drummer and we connect, especially if we've met each other many, many years ago, it's incredible that Mapex continues to bring people together, and it's just so fantastic. So I want to bring to you this fantastic drummer who's living now in LA, and he's got an incredible story. Would you please welcome Mr. Fabian Egger?
Hey, Don. Thanks for taking the time. Thanks for being here to do this interview, man. I'm excited to talk to you guys.
Thank you, Fabian.
Chop it up over some drums.
It really is. I've kind of enjoyed when I watched some videos of what you're doing and did some research on what you're doing. And I've heard your name throughout the past few years. And I get a kick out of the fact that when I hear someone like yourself playing, as young as you are, living your passion playing drums. This is incredible.
It's incredible, man. It's incredible. Like, blessed every single day of my life. It's amazing, man.
When you think about it, and you're living in LA.
Right.
In LA, the sky is always blue. The palm trees are out. You're there.
Right.
With beautiful weather. I mean, this is incredible.
Hey, it's incredible. It's incredible. Like me coming from Switzerland, it's a very beautiful place. A lot of people want to go there. They should go there. But ever since I was little, it was always like, oh, I just love the palm trees, blue skies, warm weather. That's what I want. So to now eventually actually live in a place like LA, it's incredible, man.
Well, this is so fantastic, and I want to hear your story, because your story is so fantastic from when you started younger, and you were born, and where you were born in Switzerland, you were near the border of Austria, Germany, and France, right? Kind of where you were located.
Correct, exactly. So it's just like we're very close to a lot of things. Liechtenstein, that small country, is also just 10 minutes away, so I'm really close. Austria, Germany, Liechtenstein, I could get to 3 countries within like 15 minutes, which is unbelievable, you know? It's a great place, man. I love it there.
It really is fantastic. So you started playing drums at what age? What kind of got you inspired to start this whole musical journey?
We actually have family photos where I'm just like putting together chairs and pans and whatever I could get and just basically building drums. And then my parents are like, what is he doing? And just banging around on all of these things. And I mean, it was so early, you know, 2 years old, that I don't really know. It was just a rhythm in me that I wanted to get out, or whenever I saw a band, I would be like tapping along and playing along. It's just, I don't know, man. It's the force of nature. I don't know what else to say, you know.
I think you're right. We speak about the force of nature. When there's that talent and that desire in a young child to play, it's a very, very common story with many different drummers. We just started hitting things, and
you know what I mean?
Bad.
Right, because it's just fun. It's funny too. Like even nowadays, whenever we're in a rehearsal and there is 5-10 minute break, whatnot, the artist or whoever is in the room that doesn't play any instruments or whatever, if they're just gonna mess around a little bit, first thing they do is they sit on the drums and start over there. They don't go to the bass or the guitar or the keys. They always hop on the drums and start banging around.
There's something about the drums that pulls you in.
Right.
It sucks you into the rhythm of what we're doing. So here you are as a young kid, you're playing. So when did you first get your first drum set?
Basically, I remember there's pictures too when I was only maybe like 4 or 5. I had this plastic Tom and Jerry. It's a blue drum kit. It's actually, a lot of people know it because I've seen it in pictures of other drummers that started out early. So it was just plastic, but because I was hitting so hard and playing seriously, I would just go through those, whatever drum heads those were, in like 2-3 days. So then my parents were like, oh, this is not working out. He needs an actual set, you know? And then I think that must have happened when I was like maybe around 10, 11 or something like that. Also very early. It was like also like a small kit drum set, but actually a legit drum set, you know.
So you get this drum set, you start playing. Were you playing along to records? What were you starting to do at that point?
It was a little bit of, no, actually in the beginning I didn't play along to records because I didn't have any speakers, or at the time the technology was just not really advanced for me to even have a Walkman at the time, or none of that existed at that point. So I just really was just playing rhythms and making up my own melodies and do my own thing, really, you know, all out of my head.
Fantastic. So is there anybody else in your family that's musical?
It's a funny thing. Like in my close family and an extended family, there's a lot of musicians, but nobody is professional, just because the Swiss music industry is very small. And there is literally like a handful of musicians that actually live off of that. Maybe now it's more, but at the time there was almost nobody. So I feel like back in the day, even though the passion was in a lot of hearts in my family, it just wasn't really like, it wasn't a job or anything that you could live off of.
Yeah.
So we have very talented singers in my family. My dad was actually a drummer too. And now he plays the accordion. Ever since he retired, that's all he does. He's on his accordion, and he actually plays gigs too, even though he never wants to get paid. He now occasionally, you know, he makes some money off playing with his little band in different places, stuff like that. So yeah, the passion is definitely, it runs in the family. Yep.
Well, let him know that if he keeps on pursuing it, he'll be able to, you know, enjoy being a musician full time, making money playing the accordion.
I'm telling that sometimes when he comes home, he's like, "Hey, we got a little tip." I'm like, "Hey, this little tip, you're making more than me."
That is fantastic. So when did you start taking lessons? Were there any teachers in the area? How'd that start to work for you?
Yeah, so actually there was, I don't remember the exact age, but so basically in Switzerland, everything is very systemized. So in order to get into the first step of the music school, you need to do this test where you have to pass like certain like rhythm and hearing exercises, even as a small kid. It's very basic, but you got to do that test.
Yeah.
And then they assign you to a teacher, you know, which whatever level they think is appropriate for you. And long story short, I didn't have to do that test because they just caught that I had musical talents that exceeded that off top. So I didn't need to do that, and got to go with, at the time, the most famous and the best music teacher in the area. His name is Wolfgang Ludescher. He's an Austrian, but so he always came right over the border to teach a lot of students, and he's really, really amazing. Honestly, a big chunk of my career is definitely due to his efforts, and he was also the one that got me connected in Germany with the drum camp and all of those things. A lot of those things came out of his corner because he really pushed my career for sure.
And what was he showing you? What did he kind of guide you along the way with?
I think I started with him for like 10 years. So it literally started from him just being super strict with, okay, if you start playing drums, now for the first 3, 4, 5 months, all we do is play the snare drum. That's it. We got the stick control. We're doing this exercise. We need the right techniques. It's got to sound clean. And then once you got a handle on that, you're going to move on to more elements. So literally just from the basic roots to then really advanced things, you know, like sight reading, you know, jazz, orchestra stuff, everything in between. He taught me everything.
Boy, what's amazing, what I love by that is the fact that it was old school education.
Old school for sure.
You mentioned stick control. This is going through the book and
right.
The different rhythms and the patterns and the hand stickings. You got to put the time in.
Hey man, I've done that, and then further down the road when we were advanced and going into more detailed things, I've done stick control with both of my feet. You know, I've done that. The 52 pages. Even nowadays, that's my go-to. I'll do a page a week, so 52 weeks program basically, and I just start off at a tempo where I could do it very nice and clean, and then take it up with the metronome. And I gotta read down the page. If I make a mistake somewhere, I go right back to the top. You know, and I do that for 1 week. Move on, a page a week.
Well, good for you, man. That's a fantastic exercise to have. This one of the exercises I teach in doing it, because it really is a matter of with stick control. It's called stick control, of course, for your hands. And when you go through that book, 1 page a week, with your hands, you develop more stick control.
Right.
Going with your feet is the same thing. You're going to develop more foot control.
Same thing, yeah. Same thing. At the time when they made that book, I'm sure they probably didn't think about that, but that's really, you know, that's what it is.
Boy, not at all. You know, in that book came out by George Lawrence Stone. It came out in 1935.
Right. Right.
35. They had no idea what the hell was happen with your feet.
Right.
You had that kind of advice. So tell me about this international drum competition that you got involved with.
How did that come up? I think, like, first of all, when I was a little kid, there wasn't, in my area, there weren't really any bands to play with, so to speak, because they all were in the bigger cities like Zurich or Geneva or whatnot, and I was in the countryside. So for me I'm like, oh, how do I get a foot in the door in the music scene? I was willing to do anything that I could. And there were some drum competitions in Switzerland once or twice a year where, you know, you just go play a solo, this and that. Then they have some professional judges. And they take it from there. And I was one of the top competitors every year as a little kid in those. And then I read about the Best European Drummer thing, which I think they must have advertised it in one of the drum magazines, Sticks, or I don't remember. And basically you had to send in a CD of you playing, and then they selected the whatever thought they were the best ones and invited them to the music fair, the Music Messe in Frankfurt. Yeah. And I think that they had told me that they got something like 10,000 CD submissions at the time. Yeah, and they selected 3 people, and I was one of those 3 people. And I couldn't believe it, it was just like I'm going to Frankfurt, So yeah, I went over there, and then actually ended up becoming friends with the competitors, with the people that set up everything, like Frank from Mapex, just all these people I met. And at the time I was 16 years old, and yeah, that's kind of like my first foot in the door in the European music industry, I guess.
Well, that's so amazing. And Frank Roll, who's just a fantastic person.
Fantastic guy. I love him.
He really is. And he's probably one of the best drum techs that are out there. Whenever I'm performing, with Mapex and I'm in either Germany or even in the Benelux area.
Right.
What he delivers is exactly my drum set, exactly what I need all the time, right down to the littlest detail. He is so great. So the fact that
amazing
to see you and see something inside of your playing and what you had, that was pretty powerful.
And hey, till this day, I'm super grateful for that. And Frank is definitely the person that got me started with Mapex. And yeah, that was in 2006. And so I was like 16 years old. I now just turned 31, and I've been with Mapex ever since. It's never been nothing else. Yeah.
Well, good for you, man. What a wonderful story. So here you are now. You're doing this drum competition. So now you had a fly or drive to Frankfurt right at that time.
Right, it's like 6 hours from where I live. I think my dad took me in his car at the time. Yeah.
You make the drive. You get there. You don't know what you're getting yourself involved in.
All right.
Competition, and you did this. So what happened at that point when you got there?
So it was in a tent outside, so outdoors, but it's inside the area of the Music Messe, and then they had a concert going on right in the tent before us. So it was packed out. It was like 5,000-6,000 people, which I'm like, oh, I'm about to play in front of all these people. I'd never done that, not even remotely close to it. So I remember being super nervous, but yeah, I think it went fairly well, and I ended up coming in second. I didn't win, but I came in second. So it was all, to me, honestly, it was just incredible to be there. I couldn't believe it. I didn't care what happened on that stage. I was just like, wow, I'm like a kid in the candy store, meeting all these music greats that I know from the drum magazines and all these things. I'm just like, wow, this is it. I guess this is really happening,
Well, I think what happens, Fabian, is that, I tell everyone, you earned this. By putting in the skills of learning the instrument and practicing,
right?
You earned that. So what you got out of that, you earned that to be there. You worked hard to make yourself there and make it happen. And then, what happened at the modern music school? What happened there with Hans-Peter Becker?
So Hans-Peter Becker, he was involved with setting up
this event at the Music Messe. Yeah.
Yes, so he was involved some way. It was Mapex and him on the music school side. They were connected. So, but long story short, I don't remember if I actually met him at the messe or later, but we got connected, and he gave me a phone call or an email or something, and was like, "Hey, you know what? We got this drum camp coming up in Koblenz, Germany, and we have some of the most amazing drum tutors like yourself, Don Famularo, there for a week, and people are put up in a hotel, and then you just study with these greats for a week of drumming." And I think at the time, me and a friend of mine, Roberto Cerletti, he also lives in LA now, amazing drummer too. I think we both were underage, and I think he said that the drum camp is only for adult people, so 18 and up at least. And he's like, "I really like you guys. You're really talented. If you want to come, we'll do an exception for you." So we remember going, and we're like the only actual kids there. Everybody else is grown. But it was just, and that's how I got connected with Hans-Peter. And it's just like we've been connected ever since. And all these people have definitely helped me to get to this point where I'm at right now,
Well, it's amazing how you've connected with people that are very influential in the music industry. I mean, Hans Peter Becker is not only a phenomenal musician, but he organized a school that has, I mean, he's got thousands of students. He's
Right.
got 40 or 50 schools all around the world, from
All around the world.
Lebanon to Germany to. So he's a brilliant mind
Right.
in the music industry, aside from being a great musician. And
Absolutely.
schools, and he's empowering students and getting them together. And I've done things with Peter in Greece, in
Right.
everywhere.
Right.
And it's just so great. So here you are, you come by. What was it like when you got there? And as one of just a couple of kids there, what was it like meeting all the other older students and everything?
It was cool because it was a wide range of, I feel like most of them were like adult professionals who were like teachers themselves. So actually semi or already full-time professionals,
Right.
that just basically came there to study with people that are on the, on another level like you, like there are international drummers and whatnot, to pick up exercises they then gonna pass on to their students and all those type of things. So for us, this really was just like, hey, let's go into this class and soak up whatever we can from the teachers, but also from all these other musicians that are there and are older than us and are more advanced, than us. And it was a great hang, man. Like morning to night, it was all drums, like breakfast to dinner, everything in between. It's just like literally the best week I've probably had in my life at that point,
When you get to these events where you're just talking drums all day,
right?
It's amazing how much information comes at you. And
no, it was totally overwhelming. It was just, even then I gotten all the exercise from you guys, so I came home with like a book of exercises, and everything I could get my hands on I took super seriously. So after that, I was just studying that material and working all of those things, along with my teacher in Switzerland. He then took that material, picked it up, worked through it with me, and it's just like, it was like a huge step forward from where I was like just 2 years before then,
Boy, fantastic. So now here you are, you're in Switzerland, you're all throughout the Europe area. Were there any bands that you started performing with in Europe at that time to play with?
No, and the reason being is, like I had mentioned, I was still really young and I wasn't close to a major city, so I couldn't go anywhere and I couldn't meet anybody because I was just still a kid, And then when I was 14 or 15, I entered law school, and that was just basically full time. And I was playing drums still in every free minute that I could get, but I just couldn't go anywhere to be in a band or none of that. I was literally full time studying. But already, not at the beginning, it was a 4-year program, and I think halfway in, I knew, even though that I was studying economics and law, I knew that no, as soon as I have to graduate this because my parents wanted me to, I couldn't dip out, I had to get that diploma. And once that's done, then boom, I'm going to LA to Musicians Institute. So I knew that all along. So I just needed to get that out of the way. And then, like I had a plan, as soon as I graduated from there, I went to LA, right away.
So here you are, you're studying law and economics and everything. So when you kind of made the decision to move to LA, what was that like? I mean, listen, it's a big move.
It's a huge move, man. Like looking back, it's just literally being like a foolish kid. I didn't think about. I had no idea. I was just like, hey, I want to play drums. I'm going to a sick music school. It's in LA, which I'm watching all these reality shows that all plays in LA all the time. That's where I want to be. I didn't think about any in and outs that come with it and any of the hassles and all of the heartbreak from actually leaving all your best friends and the family and all of that behind. I didn't think about that. So I feel like just like it didn't hit me until I literally was on the way to the airport and I'm like, what am I doing?
I love this because that really is following your passion.
Absolutely, 100%, 100%.
And I always say that your plan A was I'm going to go to LA. It's about music. There really was no plan B.
There was no plan B. No plan B. I never planned, and even though I did graduate at school, it was never an option, or I never thought, oh, I got something else that I could do because I got that diploma. That like literally the day where I was handed that diploma, that story of my life was done. You know, it was over. Now it's music, and it's music. There's nothing else. You know?
I love it. You know, listen, when I was 22 years old, I did pretty much the same thing. I was living in New York, and I wanted to go out to LA and learn from some teachers. There was some great players of this. Shelly Mann was out there, and so many other great players. And I had learned from many of the great teachers in the New York area. So I decided I was going to go to LA. So I put a band together, you know, a guitar player and a keyboard player, dear friends of mine, and we literally just drove out to California. We didn't know anybody. We had nothing planned. We didn't know where we live. It just was like, we're going to go out there. And as we were driving out there, when I got, you know, it was a 3,000-mile drive.
Right.
So we got to like Texas. That's when we looked at each other and said, what are we doing? We don't know where we're going. And then we started laughing, and we didn't care. We just continued on.
Right.
So when you have that feeling of that level of passion and you have that drive, you hopped on a plane. What happened when you arrived in LA?
So, man, obviously I had never been to the States. My English was very basic. I didn't know not one person here. You know what I mean? Like, thankfully, I have a really, really far relative, which is my dad's cousin at the time was still alive, and he had a house in the valley. And they were like, okay, I mean, just, you know, for the first few days, whatever, you just crash on our sofa and you take it from there. So that's basically what happened. They picked me up, they took me home. And in the first moment, I was just so hype, and like that, just the energy of LA is like, I could feel like, oh, this is what I want to do. This is the place where I want to be. Like I could feel that this is where my life's going to be, you know? So off top, I knew that, but it was just like, yeah, in my mind, I was like, yeah, in class, I was always the best at English, whatnot. But the reality of things was when I got here, I couldn't understand anything. So it was just the hassle of like having to ask, say that again, what, you know, and then it's like when you didn't understand it for 4 times, you get embarrassed, so you just shut up. So it was like, I felt like the first year I didn't really speak that much just because I didn't want to embarrass myself. So I was just kind of soaking it in and picking up the language and all of that. So it was a process, man.
So in where you were living in Switzerland, what languages, what was your core language in Switzerland?
So Swiss German, we're really close. There is no Swiss German written language. So like German, the official German language is what all the books are written in. If you go to school, they speak German. Right. But then everything out of school, we speak Swiss, which is, it's somewhat of an accent, but also there are some phrases or words that are totally different. So Germans, they cannot understand us, but we can understand them because we speak that in school, you know.
So here you are. So you arrive. The language is like, you know, adequate at best to survive.
Right.
You're figuring this out. So you're on the couch, you're hanging out. So now you start going to MI. Was that what it was?
I go to MI, exactly. So I think I had like a week or 10 days to get my situation sorted with living and all that, and then the program started, fall program at MI, and that's honestly, that was cool because when I got there, all these students are in the same boat because it's mostly international students. And as I'm in line, I'm trying to interact with some of the students. And I literally realized that I had some Asian, maybe Chinese student that I was about to talk to. And he was about to sign up and talk to the teacher, all that. He didn't speak a single word of English, none. None. So I was like, you know what? I suck, but I'm definitely, there's people here that do way worse than me. So if they can, if they can manage to handle this, I'll do the same. You'll be all right. You know?
So you were getting a certain level of confidence by realizing that you weren't the worst one that was there.
Right, right.
So at that time, what year was that at MI?
That was 2009. So I started 2009 and graduated in 2011.
Who were some of the teachers that were there at that time at MI?
Chuck Silverman, the legendary man, you know, still super deep in my heart. He was one of my favorites of all times until this day.
Rest in peace. Chuck,
yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Then the legendary Mr. Carson on the rudiments. Rob was working. My hands literally took me to a whole other level. Who else was I studying with? Glenn Sobel was there, obviously.
Yeah.
I had some. I didn't have. Go ahead.
Glenn, just so they know, Glenn is with Alice Cooper. You know, he'd been with for many, many years.
Yep.
Another phenomenal player and what you had. So you really get having access to some great, great players. Who else was there?
Let me think. It's been so long. I studied with Fred Dinkins for a long time, which he definitely he is a huge influence on my playing. He literally took my chops on a whole other level.
Well, Freddie is a dear friend of mine who he actually has been taking some lessons with me. We're working on some hand stuff.
He's amazing.
He still wants to learn some of this stuff. Freddie's been there for many, many years. He's been voted the top teacher at MI for, like, you know, many, many years being there. So, but you really had some real good education. Who else was there? Anybody else there that you can remember?
Man, I'm just so bad with names, but I feel like those were the main teachers that I had the main classes. You know, then you had all the electives that you will branch out, do this and that. Joel Taylor was there at the time. I don't know if he's still there, but he was there at the time. Yeah, I can't remember all of the name, but it was an amazing cast, man. You could choose from the best of the best. It was amazing.
You're studying at MI. They've got rehearsal rooms. You're practicing. What was it like for those 2 years taking all this knowledge in?
You know, it was funny because it never occurred to me that I was actually already in LA, and, you know, after school is over, I'm going to have to leave because of the visa situation like that. So I never thought about how I'm going to actually go about all of this, because it would have been the smart thing for me to be in school and also network outside and try to get in the music industry already. But just because all of that stuff that was going on at school, so much information, I literally only focused on school. Like, I would get up, go to school, practice until I fall asleep on the drum set, and go back to school. And I did that like 24/7, you know. So I got a lot out of it, and especially also, I feel like it opened my mind to the production aspect, because Donnie Grundler, he was one of my teachers.
Donnie, yeah, great guy.
And exactly. So he taught me like basic drum programming, all that stuff, and that was the first time that I got in touch with like Pro Tools and stuff like that. And so from there, that just opened my mind to a whole other world that I wasn't even aware of. Because at that point, all I could do was really talented at drums, but I don't know how to record. I don't know how to produce. I don't know how to songwrite or none of that stuff. So all of that definitely was started at MI for me, which was a really great experience.
Well, what a wonderful foundation that you were able to get as far as being, you know, in tune with recording and Pro Tools, and a lot of what is very, very important to understand in today's world now.
Exactly.
That was over a decade ago. Where you are now, you understand this, and this is why you have the success you have. So,
right.
What was the first? So, did you have to go back to Switzerland after MI? How did it work out?
No, so this is a funny story too. So there is a headhunter. I don't know if you've heard of him before. His name is Barry Squire. He's not that active anymore, but at the time, any tour, any band that was put together through Barry Squire. So he had a pool of talented musicians that people will call him, like, I need a band, set up this audition. He's like, okay, he'll select the musician and then have him ready to come in and audition, all of that. And I didn't know, I had never heard of this guy or whatnot, but I was at MI and I had just joined, and you know, they had some of the auditions were done at the big hall at MI. So they had a poster up, audition, this and that. So I go to the office. I'm like, hey, man, I just got to MI. I'm brand new, but I would like to do this audition because I never done one. So I just wanted to get into the experience, see what that's like. Next thing you know, boom, boom, I got a call back. Well, first they were like, you're a freshman student, so you can't go. It's only for like graduating students. But then somebody was a no-show, and they're like, okay, all right, get up on there, you know. And so, yeah, so I play, boom, I got a call back, and in the callback is only like 2 or 3 people left. And then, long story short, they offered me the gig, you know? And I was like, oh, man, I've been in this school for like 1 month. I can't just, like, my parents would go crazy if I just dip out of school and start going on a tour or whatnot. So long story short, I turned it down, but that was great because then I was on the radar with Barry. And so unknowingly, I slipped into his super exclusive circle of musicians that he recommend for any audition. So from there on, he just almost weekly, I had auditions for some of the biggest acts, you know, in the game. And that's also how I ended up getting some, you know, like Adam Lambert and some like really big names. That was all through Barry. But at the time then, I graduated on a Thursday in 2011, and I remember there was an audition on Friday for Brian McKnight's sons, who were starting a band, and I got the gig with that, and so I literally came out of MI, and the next day got that gig, and then spent like months at a time at Brian's house, because we pretty much living up there, working in the studio, working on music, working with Brian, with the sons, all of that. So it just took off, just like that.
Brian McKnight's sons, they're putting their own band together.
Right.
And you're rehearsing at Brian McKnight's house with the sons. So you rehearsed and then went on tour?
Well, it wasn't an actual tour, but we do like spot dates all around LA and California and stuff like that. So, it kept us busy for a few months. I mean, busy. At the time, I didn't know anybody and I wasn't in the industry, so any gig was great. And that was to just start off like that. I was expecting to start like playing, cover songs in a bar or something like that. But no, I'm already doing like original music with like legendary musicians. So it was just a blessing, man.
Well, this had to be at a point where you're just kind of like, you're in the midst of doing this. And sometimes when you're in the midst of doing it, it's hard to step back and realize how great it is.
No, exactly. When you're in there, you never, I struggle with this till today. Sometimes I'm just in a situation and people are like, hey, I don't think you're aware of what's going on. Like this is a crazy opportunity, or you're doing great. And I'm just in there like being hard on myself. But that's also how we get to the point where we are. If you just always look at yourself like, oh, you're doing great and everything's amazing like that, you're not really elevating your career. You got to be hard on yourself somewhat.
And being hard on yourself is very, very good. But there's a balance.
Absolutely.
We want to try and at least get some kind of enjoyment.
It should always, exactly. It always got to be a fun factor, even though it is work and it comes with a lot of responsibilities. That fun factor and like why we love drums so much, that could never get lost, because otherwise there's a disconnect. You know what I mean?
So after this, you're doing some dates. So are you still meeting other bands? Are you starting to network? Are you getting other gigs? What's happening at that time?
So in the band, I meet this guy who is now my business partner, and we create all these shows that we musical direct for. We do it all together. He's just an amazing musician and great human being. His name is Will Wu. He's a guitar player. So he had already gotten the gig, and we connected and just hit it off top. And he's 2 years older, so he was already a little bit in the music scene, not doing anything major or whatnot, but he had his little gigs that could pay some of the bills here and there. You know what I mean? And right. He literally off top, literally brought me onto every gig that he could. Every time anything opened up, boom, he called. We doing this, we doing that. Until today, we do everything together. Like he's in the band from Arena. We got Coachella on the schedule, all these things. So we went from doing like rehearsals for $20 that will barely cover the gas to go to rehearsal, not even to mention the time, to traveling the world, playing arenas and stadiums and all of that.
Boy, how fantastic that you started meeting people that you could really connect with at that point. So you're living on your own, you have your own place that you're paying for.
Right.
And you're able to make enough money to pay your bills and continue your expenses.
No. So basically what the deal was is my parents said, okay, if you go to university in Switzerland and you study, it's going to be at least 4 or 5 years until you get a master's degree or whatnot, which I was supposed to do. And I was like, hey, look, man, I just really, you guys know how passionate I am about music. And even though I can't tell you how, I feel positive I'm going to make this work. I'm going to make ends meet. So they were kind enough. I had a scholarship at MI, so the cost of my program was already significantly lower than all the other students.
Yeah.
But they basically told me, okay, you go to school, we'll cover your expenses. And then after that, you got 1 year. We'll help you pay for your apartment for 1 year. And then you're on your own. You got to do what you got to do. And so basically within that 1 year, I just managed to barely scratch the surface to where I could cover my bills, And so it was like, ever since then, I just been out here on my own.
So you had I think what I want people to understand is that you had to balance the business side and the artistic side.
Absolutely.
And this is a constant balance that you've had to work on.
Exactly, especially which, at that stage, it's a problem because a lot of time when you're on this smaller tier of gigs, original music is not paying a whole lot of money, I'm passionate about original music, but then at the same time, you over here, you got these gigs, so you could play at a wedding gig and you get paid $500-600 a day. You know what I mean? Versus I'm over here working on a project that I really believe in, but there's nothing coming in. So that was the main bell. It's like, what route do I want to go? Because I had musician friends that also like started out just like me, and they didn't really focus on original music or those type of projects. They just wanted to make as much money off top as they could. So they're playing all the bars, do weddings, all this and that. And for me, it was a constant struggle. Like, man, should I be over there doing that, or should I be over here doing this? And it's almost like two different careers, which both of them, if you do it right, you can make really good money. So it's not a right or wrong. It's just whatever you want to do.
Boy, absolutely. But it's almost kind of like, this is the decision that we have to make individually of how we want our career to go and how we want our lives to live.
Right. And even like you, there's a whole lot of career with, doing clinic and doing education and stuff like that, which I haven't even gotten into that, but that's something I'm interested in. But there's people that do nothing but that. And that's really amazing and to be mentioned for. Like within drums, there's just so many different ways that you could go. And I went the way that, that I always was thinking about my heart, not my wallet first. Of course, I needed to pay rent. So whatever I had to do to pay rent, but I always followed the bigger picture of, no, I want to go that direction. This is where I see what I want to be doing in 5-10 years from now. I'm not about to hop over here just to collect this quick check and then be at a dead end. When I could invest more time and then moving forward, I think I'll be doing better,
Absolutely. But it's great that you thought that way, And I mean, in my life living in New York, it started out where I was playing with many different bands. Then I got involved with some teaching. Then I was asked to do some clinics. Right. So with the balance of everything, then all of a sudden now, then I started writing some drum books, and so there's many different avenues that we can have that can have multiple income streams.
Right.
So there's many opportunities. But so how did it hook up? I mean, you've got some incredible artists that you have played with, and you've got some incredible, all the TV shows that you've done. My gosh, between Jimmy Fallon and the Tonight Show and all these different shows and Dancing with the Stars. I mean, you've got so much stuff that you've done. So let's just talk about now. So where did the first act that came in where all of a sudden now you were making some money and you were like, okay, this is now serious?
I think it got serious. I mean, already working with the McKnights was just like, I'm really in the game because I'm over here, working with one of the biggest R&B, acts of all times, and at the time too. So that was already like, oh, I'm actually in the music business now, even though I'm not making that much money at this point. I'm in the music business now. But where it really started like paying right, and I'm traveling the world, and I'm like, no, somebody's paying for me to fly to the other side of the world to play a show and then pay me a salary. Was really the first time when I had gotten the gig with Adam Lambert at the time.
Yeah.
And from there, it was just like, okay, I'm really doing this. And I guess, I have the skills to actually pull this off on the level that I imagined to do it. And I was just able to like networking, connecting with the right people. I was just able to keep it rolling ever since then,
So with Adam, what was that like? So now all of a sudden you're going to travel internationally.
Right.
And now you're talking about flights and hotels, and they're arranging all of that. So this is now a whole nother notch up of what you do.
Exactly. So I had only played like locally here. And like I had mentioned through Barry Squire, I got the call to do this audition. And it was at Center Staging, which, for me, it was just exciting to be at Center Staging because I knew, oh, this is where the legit acts rehearse at. And nobody wants my ass over there, but I'm going over there now. So let's see what happens. And so it was, it was like a nerve-wracking thing because they had literally every drummer that was in the game and was available was at that audition. They auditioned like 30, 40 drummers all day. And so I ended up playing. I think, I might have gotten a little bit lucky because while I was playing, Adam had, before it was just his musical director, and I guess the whole band and the management was there or whatnot. But while I was playing, Adam had walked in. He came kind of late, and that was one of the last ones. And I guess he personally was enjoying me. And at the end of the day, the artist is always the one that calls the shot. So yeah, so I ended up getting the call, and they're like, "Hey, we got a gig. We got to go to Australia. Can you go to Australia?" I'm like, "Hey, let me know."
So now this first trip is going from LA to Australia.
Right.
And that's about a 15, 16-hour flight. So now all of a sudden, here we go. This is now putting your big boy pants on at this time.
Exactly. And I was the baby because I was so young that everybody in the band was at least 6, 7 years older than me. So I was just like, "Hey, man, I gotta do whatever I gotta do. I can't fuck this up, man. I gotta keep it together."
So are you keeping your parents back in Switzerland informed about what you're doing?
Yes, I am. But that whole thing was a little bit of an unfortunate situation, because what had happened is I flew to Australia, and then I had already gotten my new visa approved. But in order for me to re-enter the US, I had to physically go and pick it up at the US Embassy in Switzerland. So I'm like, okay, cool, no problem. I'm in Australia, and I'll just pop over to Switzerland real fast. Within 2 days, I'll be back in the US, so we'll keep it moving. And they had more dates booked, so I'm like, okay, cool, great, we're keeping it rolling, because Adam, he was busy he was touring. And I called the embassy. I'm like, "Hey, I need an appointment. I need to come by. I need to grab my visa." And they're like, "Oh yeah, the next appointment is in 2 weeks from now." And I'm like, "No, I can't. I don't have 2 weeks. I gotta come tomorrow. I gotta come tomorrow." And so I tried my best to make it happen, but I couldn't. So then just from there, they had to call another guy, and you know how it goes in the music industry, man. If somebody else is in that seat, he's in that seat. So yeah, so pretty much quickly as the situation came about, it fell apart again, which then that took a huge toll on me, because at that point, like, being so green, I just figured, like, this was the one and only chance I'll ever get in the music industry to be on a world-class gig. Yeah. So I'm all in Switzerland, all depressed, and my parents are like, "Yeah, you messed it up," and I'm like, "Oh, I messed it up." So all of that, but yeah, long story short, I had to get my stuff back together and look at it, a different way. Like, "Hey, man, you know what, man? It happened for you, and it'll happen again. There's no reason why it shouldn't happen again." And then pretty soon after, I had gotten a call from a now a dear friend, Walter Horn. He was helping us on the tour managing side at the Brian McKnight gig, and we hit it off, and he had then started tour managing for Big Sean, who was then a breakout act at the time, and he blew up and became super big. And he started bringing me into the situation, and I ended up being the musical director for him, and we toured the work for almost 3 years.
So how did that work out now with the MD, the musical director part? How did that come about?
He had called me and was like, "Hey, Sean is playing this powerhouse concert at the Honda Center down here in Anaheim. And, it's an arena show. There's other acts on the bill. He just wants the show to be on the next level." So he has this idea of having like multiple drummers, because, the music is very percussive. You think, "Can you put something together? We got 2 days." And I'm just like, "Yeah, of course." I didn't really know what I was going to do, but I was just like, "Yeah, we'll do something," So we went over to SIR, and, I sampled all his drum stuff and like broke it up between different drummers. Here, you play this, you do that. And so that was only a rhythmical part, but Sean loved it. He was like, "Oh, this is really cool." So next thing you know, those drummers and me, just us, my friends that I brought on, we flying all over the world to do Wireless Festival in London and all these huge stages and this and that. And just like step by step, I added like more elements, like, "Oh, now we got a guitar player, keys, this and that." And I basically was always in his ear, like, "Hey, I could take this show on other levels. If you just let me, Yeah. And, step by step, he gave me the trust. And so next thing you know, I'm with my basic production chops and my friends that I have and the vision that I have, we're in the studio putting together like intros and show outros and transitions, connecting the songs and this. And Sean and the management, they're realizing like, "Whoa, this is a whole lot of ball game than what the show sounded like a year ago, Yeah. And so they just kept me on, and I kept pushing the show, and we're traveling the world. And I just learned as I go. Like at the time, the only thing that was holding me back, I literally only played drums. So I couldn't play a guitar or keys or anything. And so I always heard what I wanted it to be like, but then I would use the keyboard player that I had hired. Like, hey, I hear it, do this, do that. And he would get out my ideas and program it for me, you know? And so I did that for like a year or two. And then I was like, this is not the workflow that I want. So then I sat down and taught myself how to play keys as quickly as I could. And so, yeah, that's been the biggest step, because now in the meantime, I program all these shows top to bottom. Like basically I play all the parts, even the guitars I play on MIDI first. And then I just replace those to get the feel right by my partner, Will. He'll come and replace the guitars. But everything else, all the orchestra, bass, keys, I play basically top to bottom. I put all the shows together.
Fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. So you lay all those parts down, you do it all together, you're traveling with Sean. So where did, like, you know, Drake come in and Nicki Minaj and Gallant? Where all those bands come in? Did you follow along?
So with Sean, he had some big records out with Chris Brown and Kanye and Drake at the time. He had this record out, All Me, which was Drake and Sean. And so he would just pop out. Drake would come for, they will let me know like a day in advance. Hey, tomorrow in Detroit when we're doing the show, Drake will come. So arrange the song and make sure it's right. You know what I mean? So they would just pop out. Nicki and Drake would pop out and, come play with us. And it'd be funny because sometimes, because they're such high caliber artists, they couldn't even in the set tell me, oh yeah, after this song, it will be Drake's song and Drake will come out. It will literally be like, I'll be on the stage, somebody, production manager will be in my ear, and it's like, hey, while we're playing this set, they'd be in my ear like, yeah, Drake has arrived. We still, he getting situated. I don't know when he's coming out, but just know he's here now. Okay, we're playing the set, playing. Oh, I think he's getting ready to go to the stage now. I think he's coming now. Oh no, he's not. Keep playing. Do 2 more songs. You know what I mean? That type of thing. And then it just finally be like, okay, next song, slide it in, hit that, Drake coming out, All Me. And then literally he will pop out on the stage and we hit like 2-3 songs. He'll be there for like 15 minutes. Nicki, same thing. And then the concert keep going. By the time we're through our 90-minute, 2-hour show, I get off the stage. They're already gone again. They're not here anymore. You know what I mean? Yeah. That was the dynamic of things. That's how we do these shows. That's
really how the music industry is. So now tell me about, just real quickly, the German Idol winner, Luca Hänni, where you did the tune from what When We Wake Up. What was that about?
That was really cool because for a long time, because Switzerland is still so close to my heart, I always tried to get in the Swiss music industry, get connected over there. And just also because I felt like the journey that I made over here and all the sacrifices that I made would help like other European artists skip a lot of the failures and a lot of the hassles that I went through just by me sharing my knowledge of being able to help them, and connect them. So how did we connect? He came to LA because he was up for a Kids' Choice Awards as the most popular Central European artist. So he came over here, and then I have a friend, Marlene, she's a journalist. She had linked up to do an interview with him and told him, hey, you should meet this guy, Fabian. He's from Switzerland, he's young, he's doing music, you guys should hang out. So we hung out, and he told me that, oh yeah, I'm looking to, do new records. I need a new single. And I'm like, hey man, let's go to the studio, let's do something. And he's like, okay, cool, sure. We go to the studio, and like within 3 days, we do 3 songs, and he loves them all. And he went from, they just wanted a single. I was like, hey man, you know what, man? You haven't put out an album in a while. Let me do a whole album. Cause go home, come back, and we'll do an album. It'll take time. I'll book out the time. We'll do an album. And a few days later, he calls me. He's like, man, you know what, man? Then he went back to Switzerland, but he calls me. He's like, let me know when you got time. We're coming back. We're making an album in LA, And I'm like, oh man, amazing, So yeah, so I just called in a few of my people. I booked out a studio for, I feel like 3 weeks or a month. And we wrote the whole record from scratch. I think it's like, I don't even remember. It's like 12, 13 songs or whatnot. But yeah, so just put all that together right there on the spot. It was just same thing, man. Just jump in the cold water. You got to do it. I carry high standards. So if it's not right, I'll work it until it's right. So that was the approach. And till today, I feel like the record is great, man. I love it.
Well, that goes back to that work ethic. Fabian, it's that work ethic of wanting to, do it right. And that's why, as musical director, now with Marina, you're doing that, and Gashi and Lauren Sanderson, Curtis Waters, you got a lot of MD jobs that you're doing with
Right.
a much larger responsibility.
Right. And these artists, sometimes when you just get into a situation and start, you got to win over their trust. But once you're in a situation like me with Marina now, she literally, even though we haven't been together for that long, I just started working with her in 2019. She literally given me like full creative control of everything that is live. So from hiring the cast for her band to be around her, to the sound engineers, just everything. She literally is like, ask Fabian, or if Fabian says it's right, it's cool, or what do you think? Or even on her vocal, like, hey, I think here the vocal should be tuned differently, whatnot. Like, just check in with Fabian, he'll tell you how to do it. It's literally, I'm 100% in control. And that is a big responsibility, and I would never, ever let one of my artists down. So I always go the extra mile, man. If we're in a time crunch and I gotta work 24 hours a day, that's what I'm doing, because I'll never have one of my artists out here looking crazy. It's just not how I do it,
Fantastic. It really is fantastic. So now tell me about Cheat Codes.
Okay, so this is an interesting story. These guys blew up about 2-3 years ago, and were a EDM, so an electronic music group. It's a trio. So they travel the world and play all these huge raves, electronic Daisy Carnival, and just all the biggest, spots. And a dear friend of mine, Sasha, he's a drummer from Croatia. He's European too. He's involved with them because he lived in LA for a while and they were roommates. So now they have more popular songs. They did a record with Demi Lovato that went crazy on the billboards, and now they're like in the pop music scene, and it's not really electronic music anymore. It's pop. So they're like, wow, this is really where the big money is at, and we're touring the world and doing all of that. So let's do more pop records. So that's what they've been doing, and they brought Sasha back to come play drums with them. As he's a hired gun, but he's also kind of a part of a band. And then Sasha, when they said, okay, now we're coming to the point where we got to write an album and we're going to go the pop route, not the EDM. Sasha was like, okay, when it comes to the touring, all of that, we need to create a show. It's got to be right. We need the programming. They want it for their vocals because they're mostly producers. They're not really singers. They can't sing like that. Right. They wanted to sing to auto-tune. And they didn't know anybody who could program all of those things for them and set it up to where they could just show up and do their thing. It sounds great. Right. So they called me. I go to a rehearsal. We had 2 days. They gave me a set. That's a funny story too. They gave me a full outline set because they have a DJ, and the DJ connected all the songs, but everything is out of time because he would go from one song to the next and just kind of speed up the tempo that they do in their, in the DJ software. So nothing was on the grid. It was just all over the place. And I was like, oh my God. So I dropped everything into Ableton. Well, I was at rehearsal already, and they're like, dude, this is not on the grid. I'm like, no, it's not, because all of this is out of time. So I'm like, hey, here's what we're gonna do. Give me 90 minutes. I'm going in this little office over here. You guys keep rehearsing and work out some parts. I'm gonna tempo map this whole show in Ableton, so everything is on the grid now and in tempo and on the click. So I went away. I did that, was sweating bullets, just like, what is going on? I came back, put the click in their ears, and they're like, oh yeah, this is groovy, this is great, awesome, And then I'm like, okay, cool, done. Now you guys want auto-tune? Okay, let me figure out all the keys to all these songs real fast. And they gave me some of them. They had some listed, the other ones I figured out. Programmed that. They're like, oh, great, boom, headed for the lead singer. Then the secondary singer comes like, hey, I want some auto-tune too. And I'm like, oh man, I've never done two at the same time. Well, let's see what happens, Plug him in, set up another track, put him in there. It works. And, long story short, it's just like, man, this is what we want. You're our musical director now. We're doing a tour. We're doing these shows. You're the guy. Just make sure everything is right all the time. Like, that's what I do,
Boy, fantastic. Really, really fantastic. Now, before we leave, just talk about Mapex drums. What model you're playing, and just about, the sound you get from the drums.
Okay. My go-to snares, I'll start with that. First two, if I'm on a pop gig or like more urban gig, if I need that crack, I love the tomahawk snare. That's my go-to. It's just you tune that up, crank it up a little bit, and it cracks. It just cuts in the mix. It's crazy. Like that's my snare drum. I love it. When I do more, like now with Marina, it's more rock oriented. So it's a little bit a lower tuning, a little bit more warmth in the middle, mid frequencies. I do the cherry bomb. That's been my go-to. Yeah. Love the cherry bomb. And for certain effects or whatnot, I love the wasp. So I use that for certain effects. I like to keep that on me as well. And as far as the set goes, I've been playing a Saturn Exotic for a while now, which I absolutely totally love. That's my go-to kit that I have at the house. So I bring that whenever I'm actually bringing my drums. Sometimes, or a lot of times, I use the backline from SIR. Like when we do Jimmy Kimmel or whatnot, they bring the backline, and they got this beautiful Orion kit there. Yeah. And so that's almost my personal baby because I rehearse there a lot. I spend a lot of time there, and honestly, I probably play that kit more than I play my personal kit.
Well, what a great kit that is, the Orion kit.
It's so good. It just sounds amazing, feels so good, super warm. And so I kind of go back and forth between that particular Orion set and the Saturn Exotic. Unfortunately, I have not yet had a chance to get on the Evolution. Well, for real. Like I was at NAMM and I got to play just for a little bit, and it totally overwhelmed me. It blew my mind. I'm like, yo, this is next level from what I'm doing right now. And this is already sounding amazing. I don't know. This is crazy. So I got to get my hands on that right now.
That's what I have back here, and you're going to love it as typical Mapex. It's another great sounding kit.
It's ridiculous. They just had the kick drum there, which there wasn't no cutout. It was both of the heads on, and I've never in my life been able to see that have a punch or like actually. It just sounds like open, like jazzy. If that's the sound you're going for, great. But they had the kit there. There was no cutout, just two heads, and I hit that, and it sounded like a cannon. Boom, boom, boom. Like I'm like, oh, I need this right now.
Boy, that is so great. But you've got a variety of snare drums that you use, the kits that you use. It really is fantastic. I got to tell you something.
Fantastic.
Your website is FabianEgger.com.
That's correct.
People will check it down there. On Twitter, it's at Fabe Egger, I believe is what it is at Twitter.
That's right.
And then YouTube is Mr. Fabian Egger on YouTube, right?
That's right, yeah. And the Instagram is the same as the Twitter, at Fab, FABEGGR, Fab Egger. That's Instagram and Twitter.
I want everyone to go to Instagram, go to all the different Twitter and YouTube stuff, subscribe, check them out. You see what you're doing. You're doing some fantastic stuff, Fabian. It was a fantastic time to have this moment of time with you to be able to share these ideas. We have had people from Moscow, from England, my gosh, we've got, from Belgium, from, Luxembourg, from everybody.
Shout out to Europeans, man. You guys, that's where my heart is at. So you guys, it's the same in stores for all of you guys. You could make it anywhere you're at, man. If you love it as much as I do, you'll be elevating, man.
Well, you are a great example of that success story, coming from Europe and coming by here and living your dream and doing what you love doing. But again, you've worked hard. You've learned the skills. You keep on pushing yourself. You're young. You're at the cusp of all that you're doing to make it happen, but you're bringing joy to millions of people with your music and your efforts and what you put together. So thank you so much.
That's the goal. That's the goal, man. It's a service. That's what we do. We bring joy to other people. That's what we do. That's our service.
Well, you are doing just that, man. So on behalf of Mapex and our All Access channel here, we thank you so much. This will be on Facebook and YouTube channel. So let's all share this. Keep it going.
Awesome. Thank you, Tom, for taking the time. It's amazing talking to you. And I can't wait to see you again in person, man.
Thanks so much. Well, myself too, Fabian. It was just great memories of years ago. I look forward to seeing you at some point in the future. I'm going to get out to LA soon at some point. So I'll make sure when I get there, I'll give you a call.
Let's connect. Absolutely. Thank you, Tom.
Thanks so much. Thank you so much. Bye-bye. Thanks so much, everybody.
Have a good one. You guys take it easy.
Thanks.